All right, today we are going to be talking about how your identity and sense of self can affect everything in your life. Now, I'm going to use the words identity and sense of self interchangeably because sense of self is more something we talk about clinically, but your identity, the way that you see yourself, the way that you identify yourself, is going to affect your career, your business, the way people interact with you, the way you love yourself, the way you behave. It's everything, the way that you parent, the way you are in relationships, right? So we're going to talk about that today. So let's jump into how your sense of self and your identity affect everything in your life.
I'm Australia's leading burnout therapist, Sheena Shui. I'm Australia's leading burnout therapist, Sheena Shui, live from
Anxiety is not something that happens to you, it is something that happens for you.
Sheena, it is so nice to have you. I'm going to get straight to the point. What does burnout mean?
Oh, that is a really big question.
Let's get into it today. So, a sense of self. It's exactly how it sounds, how we see ourselves or sense ourselves. Now, often in a clinical kind of way, when people have childhood trauma, they move around a lot, maybe they're in a caretaker role where they were one of the older siblings, and so as a child they had to take care of other people. Whatever it is, your identity really is formed around your teenage kind of years, early 20s. So from childhood to your early 20s is when you're forming your sense of self and your identity. And when I find people don't have a strong sense of who they are, they end up people pleasing or falling into lives that they go, oh my gosh, I've woken up one day and my life does not feel good. It's nothing like I imagined. And they actually are quite resentful towards people because they often defer to other people for decision making rather than trusting themselves. So it also ties into self-trust. And so when I'm working on with someone about a sense of self, what makes you who you are, we do likes and dislikes. And we start with the most superficial things because they might sound superficial, but if you can hold true to those, it echoes out in your behaviors in different ways. So what do I mean by that? So if someone doesn't have a strong sense of self, I might start with, okay, well, what's your favorite music genre? What's your favorite and what's your least favorite? What's your favorite food? What are your favorite foods that, like, if you're having a rough time or even a good time, what's your favorite go-to? And what are things that you don't really like that if you could avoid them, you would? What are the places that make you who you are? When do you feel the most yourself? And then what are places that you don't like? Now, let's say someone says, I don't really like avocado. Anything with avocado in it, I'm not a fan of. Or I don't really like the beach because I don't really like getting sand everywhere. Those are two things that are pretty popular. You know, you get avocado in a lot of different places and a lot of different dishes, and a lot of people love going to the beach. They don't mind the sand. If you know that about yourself and then start articulating that for yourself, that is where self-trust comes in, people pleasing goes away. So for example, if people talk about where's your favorite place and you bring up, I actually am a bit weird where I don't really like the beach because I don't like sand. It's learning how to sit with the discomfort of not having to like what everyone else likes, being who you truly are. if it's a group setting and you're all going out for lunch, whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, whether it's co-workers, whether you're doing a business lunch, people might say, oh, hey, let's go to this place. I know they do really good avocado salad, or I'm going to order everyone chicken wraps with the avocado. Learning how to say, oh, actually, I know that it's not that common, but I'm actually not huge on avocado. Could we try something else? Or same with pasta. I've had a few people mention that when we do this activity, they don't actually like pasta because they're gluten and it sits heavy with them, but it comes up all the time, and there's so many times where they've eaten pasta and felt sort of heavy and sick after. So again, learning how to articulate, hey, I know we were going to get Italian for lunch, but I know a really good Japanese place if we wanted to try that too. Or I might order a salad instead of the pastas if that's okay. Like, from the simple act of knowing what your favorite foods are and your dislikes are, you're learning how to advocate for yourself. You're learning how to sit with the discomfort of not going along with what everyone else is doing. You're learning how to be assertive. You're learning what makes you you and being okay with that. It sounds so simple, but can you see how the more you expand on this, the stronger that sense of this is who I am and what I'm about, take it or leave it comes. And that is not an aggressive thing. That's not a bitchy thing. That is not I am who I am, hear me roar. Like, not at all. This is just being who you truly are in the most authentic way. Because here's the other thing. People who don't have a strong sense of self aren't safe to other people. So have you ever met someone where you go, oh, my favorite food is X, and they go, oh, yep, that's me too. Or you feel like they're trying to win you over because they're just kind of acting like who you are and they're not kind of being themselves. It can feel a little bit unsafe, like you don't know where you stand with that person because there's an inauthenticity there, because they're always people pleasing. Like, they never sort of stand up or be authoritative or be assertive or be who they are. Often we interpret that as inauthentic or unsafe or, fake a little bit. And that doesn't make us build trust. When we don't know who someone is and what they stand for, we don't know where to stand with them. But if you've ever had this, and I know I've certainly had this, where you might walk into a wedding or a networking event and there's a bit of a character there. Either they have a really strong sense of style where you know who they are because their clothing choices are bold and clear and very niche. Like, not everyone would wear that, but that is who they are. Or they have a certain way about them, the way that they speak or the way that they are is so unique to them that not everyone's going to get it. Not everyone's even going to like them, but there's a sense of safety that comes from knowing exactly who they are and what they're about. And I've had this with people that aren't even my people, right? So there's some people that, look, I wouldn't necessarily call up and want to hang out with as a friend or, have as a partner, but I feel safe around them because I know what they stand for. I know who they are and what they're about. And even though that's not my cup of tea, I actually can work with them and engage with them and work on them on a project because I know what they stand for. So that is a sense of self. And you can see how when you establish this with yourself by working with someone like myself or doing our activities, our mentorship, or working with any kind of therapist or on this idea, it can have such a big impact. Now, I want to talk about identity in a slightly different way as well, because identity is something that we see ourselves as now, but we can also grow into. And I talk about some really cool embodiment exercises that are super fun in my mentorship. So if you're in it or want to join it, check that out, because we're going to be doing that in the coming weeks as well. But when we talk about identity, this is about the person I'm trying to be or want to be, and I want to identify as. So for example, if one of the roles in your life is being a mum, what does the identity of a good mum look like to you? Or same thing, I want to be a really good wife or partner, whatever that looks like. What does the identity of a good partner do? You know, what's their behaviors? What are their feelings? How do they think about themselves? How do they think about other people? What are the values that person has? And again, you can see how there might be the identity as a wife, a partner, a mother now, and there might be who you are aiming to be. So for example, you might say a good partner is someone who is fully present on date night, who has thoughtful gifts, who makes the time for the other person, who puts that other person above work, who stands up for that other person, who has that other person's back in social settings or with family. That's what to me makes a good partner. And you can ask yourself, am I doing those things? Am I making a point of being thoughtful towards my partner, or making time for them, or having their back, or being really physically affectionate? Is that what a good partner is? Like really building that identity of the person you want to be and where you're at now. But if you never think about this, because again, there are going to be people who don't listen to podcasts like this, who don't do self-development work. I mentioned this in the last podcast too, because you've got to remember, it can be easy when you listen to podcasts like this, do this kind of work, to forget that only a small amount of percentage of people do. But if you're doing this work, you're probably around people who do this kind of work. So it seems like lots of different people do this work, but really a lot of people don't. So you've got to remember, even just from listening to this one podcast, and you might be thinking about your sense of self, or your identity around motherhood, your identity around being a partner, your identity around being a good business owner, your identity around being, you know, a good daughter, your identity around being a friend, your identity of being a runner or a CrossFitter or someone who does high rocks or a Pilates princess, all of those things. You're choosing to create yourself and to move forward in a positive way, and to act in a way that really builds on who you are and the person you're striving to be. So many people don't ever think about that and are just going on autopilot. And so you've got to remember that you want to surround yourself with people, and not everyone has to do this, but try and share this with people in your life, because this is important work. This is the work that previously religion would try and get people to work on. Not all religion, but you have to remember, this kind of personal development field is fairly new if we look at history. If we look at history, people would develop their sense of self or their identity through church, through patriarchy, through all of those sorts of things. So actually the privilege in our day and age to be able to do this work as a woman and not get identity through our partner and not get identity through our job role, that's just a part of who we are, but it's not all of who we are, is so important. And again, just a side note, I want to touch on that, because this identity and sense of self-work is so important when shit hits the fan. So the reason I work on this as well is because people who have a strong sense of self, a strong identity, handle hard times much better than people who don't. So let's say Someone has a really strong sense of self and identity and their business collapses. One part of their identity might be affected in that they were a business owner, but they also identify as a CrossFitter, a really good mum, a fun friend, a party goer, someone who loves, heavy metal, whatever it is. And then they've also got their favorite foods. They go, I know my favorite food is this. My favorite place is this. I feel the most myself when I go to this location, or I have really good friends and family. Like, they have so much going on and such a clear sense of self and identity outside of the business that, yes, of course, that's still going to affect them and disrupt them, but nowhere near the same level as someone who over-identifies with that role of business owner. Oh, the business was my baby. I put so much time and energy into it. That is who I am. It was me, it was me, it was me. You can see the danger in over-identifying with the business, calling it your baby, saying that the business is you. Don't get me wrong, it's an extension of you. Or if you're in your career and you over-identify with the role of a marketer or an artist, that's part of you, and you can take that wherever you go. But just because your business didn't work or you've lost your job doesn't mean you don't have that anymore either. But if someone gets so much of their worth and who they are from that, it leaves them very vulnerable when that thing's taken away. Same with motherhood. If people over-identify with motherhood or being a wife, and then they go through a divorce and they can't get identity from being that person's wife anymore, or something happens where the kids get older, or they move out, or they do get divorced and they only have the kids some of the time, those areas of I get identity from a wife and I get identity from motherhood will be affected. But if they over-identify with that is who I am only, very vulnerable place to be. And you will see this in your friends and family. You can see when someone over-identifies with work or over-identifies with motherhood or centers the partner in their life. Like, their whole identity comes from being this person's partner. Like, everything, every post that they do, every conversation they have, they bring up that partner. And you can just see, if that partner's gone, you're stuffed. Do you even know who you are when you're not with them? Like, you can see how creating sense of self and identity protects you from hard times, but creates who you are individually without turning to other people to create that. So this was a big conversation today, but I absolutely know that one of you and who you are is going to get so much from thinking about this and reflecting on this and planting this little seed. Because every time you listen to a podcast like this, whether it's myself or someone else, you're planting little seeds in your mind that might come out in a month from now. You might notice naturally come out in a conversation the next time you have lunch with your girlfriends. Like, don't underestimate how taking this 15 minutes, 20 minutes here and there for yourself in the car or on your walk or whatever really does change who you are. So be incredibly proud of yourself for choosing something like this, because not everyone will. So I'm incredibly proud of you. You should be incredibly proud of you too. Now, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Don't forget to reach out, take my quiz, check out the new membership we have, and I will see you in the next episode of Burnout to Brilliance.